We are a marketing agency. Has anyone heard of them? Fantastic. If you haven't, the way I describe Oliver to anybody who doesn't work in advertising is we're the current Uber of advertising. We've taken the traditional model that everyone knows, we've tweaked it to make it more efficient, quicker, better for the client, and we have redistributed the market. This means, so before I get into the point where I do the journey of how we've got here, give you a bit of background on Oliver, this means we have hundreds and hundreds of clients, and we have grown on an average of between 6% and 13% every 6 weeks for the last however long I've been there. The average advertising agency grows at 6% a year. We've also gone from 353 employees in 2013 to 1,275 in 2017. We're still a privately owned company. There's one guy at the top who's incredibly inspirational, but you can imagine with that comes some huge challenges. Absolutely huge challenges. There is a constant and dramatic cultural shift every 6 months. I've been in the company 2.5 years. Mariana's been in the company 4 years. And every 6 months, the company almost completely flips on its head because you grow, we expand, we move in different markets. So this is intensified by the Oliver model. This change, this cultural shift, all that kind of stuff. Basically, Oliver creates a completely bespoke solution for every client based at the client. So we have an employee who works for Oliver, but we don't see them. They're on the client site. They're sat side by side with the client every day. They're immersed in the client's culture. So you can imagine trying to line manage somebody who doesn't actually sit with the people who have all the values every day, and they sit with some other person's values. Back in 2017, we stopped. We were hiring fast enough. We really were. We were hiring at absolute breakneck speed. But were we hiring the right people? The answer was no. We had a turnover of 29% in 2017 in the UK. This company's just grown too fast. The other way I describe Oliver is it's a startup in a fat person's body because it's grown too fast. And we had an average length of service of 18 months. Now, advertising doesn't have a long length of service. The average is about 2 years. Because it's a creative industry, people want to work on different creative work, it's not that long. But with the growth of Oliver and the growth of the Inside Ideas group that formed out of Oliver, we should have been able to keep our people longer. We really should have done. So that happened, yeah. So we're hiring fast, the answer was no. Not only were we losing the knowledge, we were losing the physical cost of that hiring that person, we were also getting a battering on Glassdoor. I can't even describe. Nobody who had a good time at Oliver were putting it up there. Everyone was not putting it who didn't have it up there. And all that pressure was falling on my team because my team looked after the long-term hiring, which was what was happening, the short-term hiring, because we looked after the freelancers too, so those stopgaps. We looked after the resource management, so moving resource around the business, and we were looking after internal moves. So we were trying to move our talent around the business. As I said, our business model was to put people on site with the client. So there are 3 outcomes if you don't have somebody on site with that client at that time. The first is you lose revenue. That's not good for anyone. And also the pressure falls back on my team because there is an urgent hire to hire that person to get that revenue back in. Are you going to hire the right person? No. The second was you put the scope of work within the current employees. That puts more pressure on those employees. That's not good for morale. And that also fell on my team because we looked after resource management. So we had to go and find that extra resource out of people who were already stacked. And the last one was freelancers, short-term support. Freelancers is a dirty word in our organisation because obviously it's the one thing that you can switch off quickly to change. If you're having a bad month, that is the only place you can go to change your costs quickly. So the pressure comes back on. That also fell on my team because we looked after all the freelancers. So we had the pressure of keeping the cost down whilst trying to recruit, whilst trying to resource manage. So we stopped and we said, okay, what are the 3 things we need to ask ourselves? The first were, what were the direct and indirect consequences of our turnover? Well, I think I've given you the 3 big ones, but there was a whole load of stuff below it. Secondly, why did some people thrive in the Oliver model and others just didn't? You know, it was sad. Some of the people who left and Oliver wasn't right for them were the nicest people I've ever worked with. Probably, actually, I prefer them to some of my work colleagues. And lastly, what traits were needed to allow someone their best chance of success in our company and also on a particular site? because one size does not fit all within the Oliver model. So the way we are using Assess First, we are in our infancy. We're still very much at the beginning because being the Uber of advertising, we don't have copious amounts of people sitting around being able to implement things. I'm implementing it with Mariana. So we are using it in 3 ways at the moment. The first is with new hires. Actually, 4 ways, I lie. I used it one way last night with a particular line manager. So the first way is new hires. I'll give you an example. We hired an L&D person at the beginning of this year. She had the most stonking CV. She'd line managed 7 people, she'd implement all this stuff, and actually in the job, she was fantastic. She was a nice woman, she worked hard. 4 months in, she's gone. Right, okay, and obviously setting up a function, she was also setting up the function. We had no L&D before that. Because we've grown so fast, you always fill in the support staff at the back. She was gone. And during her time at Oliver, we did the Assess First implementation. So we thought, okay, let's look at how her profile matches up with the new what we're looking for in the new thing. Turns out there were 2 massive, glaring things in her personality. One, she wanted stability. Setting up any new department, there's no stability. And also within Oliver, because it changes every 6 months, if you seek complete stability, there's only about 15 or 20 sites we could put you on which are our most stable. You're not one-on-one with the client, all that kind of stuff. And secondly, hold on, I wrote these down because I found them last night. Yes, she didn't have the perseverance when confronted with obstacles. You're setting up a new department, you're going to get obstacles. You can't miss that. You can't go around them, you have to go through them. And for her, and the role she went into was a pre-made team of 7 people at Nespresso. Can't compete with one person. You've got to, in Oliver, you don't get a team until you prove it. You absolutely got to prove it. So we're now hired our L&D person yesterday, using Assess First based on the knowledge we've got. Fingers crossed. Let's go with that one. Second one is internal moves. We encourage internal moves like you would not believe. I've never worked in an organisation where if you say to something, Mariana's a good example. She was in the home team, she's on the front desk. She said, actually, I quite like to do some talent and some resourcing. Fine, come across. Absolutely thriving. We love internal moves because actually a lot of people work on one client. If you want them to stay within the organisation, they have to move. And also, people can't always go up. They need to go sideways. So we love internal moves. But we did a few, and they'd move, and then they'd leave. They'd be the bee's knees on the first site, and then they'd move to another site, and within 6 months, they'd be gone. And you'd be like, how can you've been so loved over there, and then it didn't work? So we're now, when we're moving people in internal moves, we're using the tool to assess the team that they're with to make sure it's the right cultural fit as well as the right skill set. And the last one is team dynamics. So an example of this was a couple of weeks ago, we'd done 15 first interviews for a business director. No one got through, and we were like, what? So I rung up the client service director and went, what's going on? And he said, I'm not sure any of the candidates can handle the account directors they're going to line manage. Firstly, I know there's account directors, they're incredibly feisty human beings. But I thought, what? Okay, fine. So what we did was we sent the tool to the account directors. We re-picked out the people who he thought were about right, and everyone new did the tool. So we have hired that business director based on the Assess First, not based on interview, and they've been there a month, so fingers crossed. But we best look massively at the leadership side of things, massively, because they had to be able to lead, they had to convince others. That was something that we were looking for really, really closely. And actually, the last one actually only happened last night. Have any of you guys ever been hiring and the person's like, I need this person in, I need this person in. By the way, I'm going on a 2-week holiday and no one else can recruit. You're like, right, great. So our payroll manager's gone on holiday, he's gone to the Caribbean, wonderful. He desperately needs a payroll manager because we've only got a 4-week notice. Average time to hire is longer than 4 weeks, plus the notice period. So I said to him, okay, so we did a Zoom. Does everyone know what Zoom is, or WebEx, whatever you want to call it? Last night he was working from home. We created a bespoke model for this role. And so I said to him, right, you're going to trust me and you're going to trust my team. You create the model with me. This is what you're looking for in a personality. We're going to vet the CVs. We're going to give them a preliminary call. We're going to give them the tool. He's done it as well, so we've got the match for him. And I said, when you come back, anyone who fits the profile and anybody who has a good enough relationship with you based on it is going to be booked in. Any available slots are mine. So we'll see how that goes. So as I said, we're very early days in our implementation. We're using it on bespoke different bits and pieces. But the plan is long term. So the first step for us is we're sending out the profiles to our ambassadors. We have one person on each site who we believe has our values. So we're going to send it to them so we can find out what makes people thrive on different sites. And then the plan is to roll it out at the moment by Christmas, but after the first interview for every role, between first interview and second interview. And then eventually 2019, is that next year? Yes. Is to do it as soon as people come into the company, before you even get in the door. That's the plan. And it also is really good for the candidates. They get something back.